Hello, this is Lonnie Lee. On September the 17th, 2025, the day before my 85th birthday, I celebrated the launch of the first two books of my four-book autobiography, which is called Once Upon a Star. It was held at GLEEBOOKS, the well-known bookstore in Sydney, and music historian and critic Bernie Howard interviewed me. During the night, I also sang some of my hits, which are mentioned in the books. Unfortunately, we had camera problems on the night, so the vision is not very good at all. However, here it is, and I hope you enjoy it as well as the books.
Good start, right?
We're away, we've dropped everything.
We're on the way, absolutely. Hang on, well, I get this in there. There we go. Okay, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Or can you hear me nice and loud?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you can't hear me, you just see Laurie's answers, that'll be all right. That's what we're here for.
Good to see you, Bernie. Thank you for coming.
Oh, my pleasure, Lonnie. I think I'm very proud to be here, actually. As an understanding of history and music, there's no greater source than the man sitting next to me here. He's lived it all, and when he asked me to do this, he said, about half an hour of questions. By the time I got through the two books, and I put post-it notes and things when I read them and researching, and I said to him, 30, you sure you didn't leave an O off that? There's 300 minutes worth at least here. I don't know how we're going to do our best to not get bogged down. There's nothing to get bogged down in, but there's so much to get lost in, and an incredible life and career. But I do want to start with some family background so that we understand where this towering figure in Australian culture emerged from. Your grandfather had a grandfather who left England in 1888, ended up in Australia searching for gold, and then becomes buddies with Charles Dickens' son, somewhere out in northwest New South Wales. Through an inheritance, starts a property in Rowena, and he calls it Bleak House to keep the Dickens connection going. And then his son, your father, grows up at Rowena, gets sent to Barker College. It's intended that he becomes the heir to Bleak House, and this may come out again later in the family tree, rebels against that and comes down to Sydney, goes to uni, ends up marrying a beautiful woman from Abbotsleigh, and grows and introduces the other side of your family, and a maternal grandmother who was from a Prussian Jewish family who escaped from Nazi Germany. And you tell a wonderful, I found it an amazing story about the continuing fear your grandmother felt about a Nazi resurrection. Yeah. And you found something in a paper, I think, that...
Yes, one particular time I was going through the paper, as we always did in the morning, and I saw an article that said that people that had lost money in Germany because of the war, people that had money and businesses taken from them, that the German government was going to start paying them back and trying to compensate some of them. So I knew that my grandmother had been in Germany and from Prussia, and that they were quite wealthy. They had something to do with banks and whatever, and so they had lots and lots of stuff taken from them. So I told her one day, I said to her, Grandma, you realise that the German government are now offering compensation. You just got to put your information in, and they'll test it, and if they think that it's fine, they'll work something out. And as soon as I said that, she absolutely freaked. She screamed at me. She said, "Don't you dare do anything like this. I don't want to know about this stuff." And she was absolutely petrified. And while she was ranting, I said to her, "Why? What's wrong? What's the problem? What's going on?" And she said, they've got our names. They've got the family. They're going to be there while they've lost the war now. They're still compiling all the names, and eventually they'll come back and they've got all the names of all the families, because on that side of my family was Jewish. And so she was absolutely petrified that this would happen, that one day someone would come knocking on the door and drag us off.
I found that an incredibly compelling and powerful view of war and its impact, and how it plays out at that micro level in families. I found that.
Yeah.
But she married a successful businessman, and you know, Leafy Chatswood as it was in those days.
Yeah.
Very happy. And then on the 18th of September 1840, 85 years ago tomorrow, into a world that was at war, you arrived.
Here he is.
Yay! So let's take one last look at 84. It's not going to be bad, is it? You know? We'll never see this 84-year-old Lonnie Lee ever again.
That's true.
But that's an amazing, and I guess every family has it, but when you see it written down and you start thinking about it, that's an amazing collection of characters that have, and you emerged from it. How, how did they shape you?
They were all very different because their cultural things were different. My grandfather, on my mother's side, her father, he was originally from Scotland and settled up in Gympie, and he used to tell me about they'd forage around in the outskirts of Gympie and they'd find pieces of gold and stuff like that, you know. And so it came from that, and then the Prussian side, the Jewish side there, and it was a real mixture of things. And while, in a way, they were all sort of facing outwards like that, there was still this connection between them all. Both families, the Ricks family and the Cook family, they never really got together like this. There were like two separate lives that I was involved in. I was involved in this model here and that model there. And this model here was a country model from Rowena and England, and this one here was from Prussia and here in Sydney.
And that becomes an ongoing theme in your life, doesn't it? You're sometimes torn between two worlds.
Many times,
but you end up, because your father's decision to stay in Sydney cuts him off from finance, from Bleak House, the Bleak House money.
Yeah.
And so you end up growing up in Waverton, and it seems to have been an almost idyllic childhood in one sense, because it was a great place to be running around and discovering things. But I just want to run you through a couple of things. If you've read the first book, you're well aware of this, but just to reflect on how lucky we are to have him here today. In Waverton, as a child, you managed to electrocute yourself, drink nail polish, and set fire to your cot. But there was a piano in the house, but a house that will soon be shaped by divorce.
Yes.
At a time when divorce isn't a common feature. So
yeah, and in my family, the divorce was really, really taboo. You didn't divorce if you didn't like each other, and you somehow have to work it out, you know. And as hard as that may be, but my mother couldn't cope with my father's going off with somebody else, and so she said, "That's it, boom." And so she was disowned by her parents.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, that it's a different time and a different place where the innocent woman is disowned by her own family.
Yeah.
So looking back, there's this combination of happiness and sadness. But how do you look back now on that period of your life? Now that you're sitting down, you're writing about it, you're reflecting, how do you feel about it now?
I suppose it's, I don't have any regrets about any of it at all, because all of it, every ounce of it, is what has made me today. And but I do, if it was somebody else, I'd be looking at it and saying, you know, it's a shame that happened to you. It must have been hard for you to get through it. Although, being myself, I don't think of it that it was hard. I've always thought that my life was that I had very little say in it. That destiny definitely had a handle on me and took me through it and numbed me down from the moments that could have been really horrific, and held me down also from not being too elated when wonderful, beautiful things happened to me, so I wouldn't be my ego wouldn't go out of the park, you know.
I think that's a tribute to why people are coming tonight to hear you, because if you've read the books, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't yet, you're in for a treat, because these two books are like sitting down having a chat with Lonnie. They really are. And he's not trying to aggrandize himself, he just is telling you about his life with that humility that I think marks a really special person who has made an incredible contribution to Australian culture that should never ever be ignored or overlooked. How important as a figure in Australian culture this man is. And that's why I want to spend just this little bit of time helping understand how this person emerged. And you started off, you had a little bit of time at North Sydney Primary School.
Yes, I did. I was there only for a short amount of time, and then that finished when one day I guess I was maybe 4 and a half, 5. I went to school. There was a big iron gate in Bay Road, North Sydney, and the big iron with the stone pillars on the side, and this monstrous gate from the convict times, and that gate was always open. And as the kids were coming to school, and I was going to school one time, and as I was just halfway through the gate, some kids closed the gate and I jammed my finger, and so it took the top off my finger and just absolutely squashed it, and horrific. And so there's blood squirting everywhere, and so a teacher took me home, and then my mother took me to the doctor in St Leonard's, and who tore the nail off and all that stuff.
And
it's still today, you can see it today, it's still it's strange.
And you do shiver when you read this, trust me, in the book it's...
I shiver thinking of it.
And so instead then of a career at North Sydney Public, for your 6th birthday, you get a surprise.
Oh God, it was terrible. I can still remember, I can still see it. I was sitting on my grandmother's lawn, front lawn, and my mother said, "Oh, you know, we've decided that we're going to send you to a boarding school." And I didn't know too much what boarding school was. And I said, "Oh, okay, yes. What's that all about?" And they said, "Oh, well, you know, your father went to Barker College, and we wanted to send you to that college because the whole idea then was you followed your parents into the same school." And but they said we couldn't get you in there because it was full, so we sent you to their sort of brother type school, Trinity Grammar. And I said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Well, so what does that mean?" They said, "Well, it means that you're going to be living there, and we'll still come and see you." And all that. I said, well, why do I have to live there? They said, "Well, that's because that's what the school is. It's a long way away from here, and you'll be there, and there'll be lots and lots of boys. You'll have lots of friends, more friends." Because I didn't have that many friends. I was pretty silent sort of a guy, very shy. And I said, "Oh, you'll have so many friends," and that was it. So I didn't really think about it as being anything bad until the actual day itself.
And if you want to read heartbreaking material, go to the section where Lonnie's first day at the school. I mean, it's still, I was telling a friend about it today and I was still choked up because it's just heartbreaking. But I do want to, one of the things that stuns me after 40 years in public education was, what punishment did you get for taking the top off a boiled egg with a knife?
6 cuts of the cane. And the canes were like this big, and they were bamboo, always bamboo. And some of them were quite thin, and others were quite thick. And the teachers, they must have all come out of Nazism or something, because they seem to have this horrible trend of punishing boys way above what would be normal. And they would aim, you put your hand out, usually in the hand, sometimes it was on the backside. You have to put your pants down, and they'd beat you on the backside. But mainly it was on the hand, but they'd aim for the tips of your finger. So not in the middle there, which we wouldn't so bad, they'd get on your tips. and sometimes your fingers will be absolutely blue from that. The pain was just excruciating.
And
Many times it had happened.
And you think it can't get any worse, okay? You think, yeah, I mean, I was staggered by that. But parents would often send ration packs because I'm gathering the food wasn't great in boarding school. And you got some jam and some condensed milk. Happy as Larry that you got some good food. What happened?
Well, the whole idea was that my parents would come and see us every weekend or every second weekend. We'd go out, they'd go home and whatever. And that didn't really happen too much. My mother came, I guess maybe every 6-8 weeks or something. My father, who was in the country, he couldn't come too much at all. So there were times, even times when during school holidays, where my father was just so busy there that I couldn't go back to the property, and my mother was working, so I couldn't go there. So I'd have to spend the holidays in the boarding school by myself with the nurse and whatever. But most of the time it was sort of heart wrenching, you know, of the whole shebang with boarding school and all that. It was really traumatic.
And when you liberated your condensed milk and jam, because what happened whenever you got parcels from home, any of you? What happened to the food?
Well, on the weekends that we'd go home, the parents, and not just me, but lots of the kids, would say, okay, take this back with you, and you get some jam and condensed milk, which I love to get my finger into condensed milk, and raspberry jam or strawberry jam, because the only jam we had there was marmalade, and which I didn't like. So anyway, so many times that we'd have that and we'd take it back there. As soon as the parents left, the teachers would take the goods, and then you never see them again. They're gone. You weren't allowed to bring the stuff back into school at all. So we were left. And then one time, a mate of mine decided we'll raid the room. So in the middle of the night, we got up, because we were in dormitories, about 20 kids. So we got up and snuck out and got into the dormitory and got the condensed milk and got stuck into the condensed milk. Of course, the next day they knew about it, and we got more cuts of the cane then. And not just that, but as well as the cane, you'd be sometimes deprived of dinner or dinner and breakfast as well. You know.
I was absolutely gobsmacked reading that. You know, you think you see it in an old black and white British movie, but
Yeah,
this is living.
Yeah, it was like Oliver Twist.
Yeah, it really was.
Sure.
But then your father decides to accept his destiny and goes back to Rowena, back to Bleak House, and you start spending more and more school holidays up there.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, back in here, your mum's got a piano, you're living a different life in Sydney than your holidays or when you're at home.
Yeah.
So what you said about splitting in two, that starts becoming very apparent.
Yeah. There were like two lives. One was with my father back in the country, and I'd go there as hopefully every holiday we'd try and get there. So we get on the train in North West Mail, which was overnight. The trip would take a day and a half to get there. So that was what I'd like to be doing every holidays. But other holidays I'd be in Sydney, so I'd be with my mother in Sydney, and but most of the time she'd be working. So sometimes I was with my grandparents there as well. So, but the lives were just so totally different. But before my mother and my father split, talking about the piano, that was really my first introduction to music. You know, because every night we'd be playing. There was no TV and radio wasn't much, and so what we'd do, we'd be all around the piano, all playing. They'd be playing their songs from when they were kids, you know, songs from the 40s and whatever.
And then so the roots of what was to come just starting to be sown.
Yeah.
And then you meet what I now realise and accept and understand is one of the most unknown figures in Australian music history. I'd never heard of this man, and I don't know there's much else known about him, but you meet a mate called Paddy Hogan, who I think has an amazing impact on what becomes the person who Lawrence Rees becomes Lonnie Lee, in part because of Paddy Hogan.
That's true. Well, I met him because when I was in my last 2 years of school, I was in, I went to day school and taken out of boarding school, and to help my mother, I would deliver papers in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning, all around Waverton and Wollstonecraft, and then I'd go to school, and in the afternoon I'd come back and I'd do a delivery in the afternoon, pretty much the same sort of delivery. And then after that, then I'd go up and sell the papers on the street, on Miller Street, Miller and Berry Street, on a pub there. And it was there on that pub corner that I met this guy who was maybe 8-10 years older than me, Paddy Hogan. Lovely guy, very soft, gentle guy, and he loved me and talking to me and all that sort of stuff. And he just lived in one of the terrace houses down from the pub in Berry Street. Of course, now they're monstrous big buildings, but they were just all terrace houses. So I went there, met his family, and sort of became, in a way, a bit like his younger brother. And he was the one that, because he was older, he was the one that knew about Bill Haley and all these different, the different changes that music was going on. So he was the one that first went and got bought Rock Around the Clock, and which was the first time it came out, which is in '54, and it didn't make that much attention at all. It wasn't until Blackboard Jungle, the movie, that it really happened. But and then through that, and then with other people, he introduced me to as well. So it was really him that sort of took me away from being a schoolboy, a really shy schoolboy, country boy sort of guy, to someone that was now being introduced to street life. Because there were lots of guys then, the street guys from North Sydney and all that, and they were really streetwise guys, but lovely guys, you know. And so that was my first to go into the real life, you know.
And then in 1955, you go and see Blackboard Jungle.
Oh.
How does that change things? Start that process of change.
That was absolutely amazing. Well, we knew it was going to be amazing because everyone was talking about it. They were trying to stop it from being shown, and they censored some of it. They took, I think, 13 minutes or 30 minutes out of it or something, and because it was all about school kids in America rioting against the establishment and all that sort of stuff. And that was just one part of it. The main part of it that we were interested, I was interested mainly, was the fact that the music, and that happened because just out of sheer coincidence, I guess, the guy who directed and produced the movie, his son had heard Rock Around the Clock from when it was first released and thought it was tremendous and thought it'll be an ideal song, so introduced it to his father, and his father said, yeah, okay, we'll put that in. And so he put that into Blackboard Jungle, and that was the whole musical beginning, really, of rock and roll, because of that little thing. But when we went there, and there's kids going absolutely everywhere in the place. It was just totally stacked, and of course the lights went out, and the music started. Rock Around the Clock started. Christ, everyone got jumped out of their seats, and they're all down the aisles and dancing and screaming, and it was an absolute amazing scene to watch and be involved in.
Yeah, when I was researching rock through history, I think, I remember going through the newspapers and people were actually arrested and fined for dancing in Pitt Street afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, that was Australia in 1955.
Yeah, and as I said, a lot of it was censored. They cut it out of the movie. You know, and it wasn't anything like today. It was just some kid abusing his teacher or something. You know?
And trust me, that happened a lot after that.
Well, that's right, you're an educated, you know about that.
Then we reach a pivotal year in Australian musical history, and in music history worldwide, 1956. You moved to way out to East Bankstown, way out in the wilds, and You know, it wasn't even called Greenacre then. It was,
No, well, it was called East Bankstown.
and that's significant in anybody's life, but in that same year, just think about what's going on. You hear Heartbreak Hotel by Elvis. You start just tentatively trying to sing at parties because you've sung at home around the piano. You start a little bit of singing. You hunt down Elvis's Sun Records, which is, you know, I can't imagine that was easy in Sydney in 1956.
No, partly that came about because my mother remarried, so I had a stepfather, and his sister's husband worked on a ship, I think it was called the Mariposa, and it used to ply between Sydney and the United States and Canada, and so he'd bring back lots of American stuff that he'd give us, you know.
So at the same time as the Beatles are picking that up in Liverpool, the same way through ships, and people tell them, here are you tracking down these rare artefacts in Sydney in 1956. You buy a guitar. You're getting caught up in this. This is having a real impact on you. And you're just somehow in the right place at the right time. And 2UW's Amateur Hour. You desperately want to sing a song at there. You're a shy kid, but you decide, okay, I'll go and tell them I've got a song I can sing. Yeah, I'll sing a song. What's that song that you desperately wanted to do?
Well, I was before Elvis. I was really in love with Johnny Ray's songs and his voice. I didn't know too much about his movements until later, but it was his voice, the way he sang with emotion, and the songs themselves. And so I'd sing his songs and whatever. So when it came to the Amateur Hour, I wrote away to 2 amateur hours. One was TUE with Terry Dyer, I think his name was, and the other one was TUW. TUW answered in the affirmative, and so they said, come in, bring in 3 songs, and we'll choose which one. So I had Cry, and I thought, okay, the other one, I like Nat King Cole's Autumn Leaves, so I'll take that in. And the other one was the one that I was just getting into, which was Elvis's Heartbreak Hotel, knowing that no one would know it. So anyway, but there's no chance that I'm going to sing it. So anyway, I get in there and they say, okay, well, what song do you want to sing? I say, I want to sing Cry, Johnny Ray's Cry. I say, sorry, you can't sing it. I said, oh, why not? And they said, because someone has just sung it a couple of weeks ago, and we don't want to repeat that stuff. And I found out later on that someone was Johnny O'Keefe. He'd just sung Cry just a few weeks before.
So, should we give you a chance now to perhaps sing it? Could you sing it for us?
Okay, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Give us a little bit of Cry, just so you've had a chance to finally get it out there in the public.
Okay, here we go. So how old am I now? Let me see, I'm 15. Let me see if I've got to see it. Out of nowhere. If your sweetheart sends a letter of goodbye, it's no secret you'll feel better if you cry. When waking from a bad dream, don't you sometimes think it's real? But it's only false emotion that you feel. If your heartaches seem to hang around too long, and your blues keep getting through with every song, well, remember
56. So we finally got there. And that must have been a time that changed things for you.
Oh, it did, because I came second, and I ended up singing Heartbreak Hotel. And there's a story there, because when he said, no, you can't sing Cry, then I said, Nat King Cole, no, you can't sing, that's too slow. What's the next one? I thought, oh, Christ, they won't know the song, I'm done. So he said, okay, give the sheet music to Frank on the piano, because there was no band, it was just a piano player. And so anyway, he started playing Chunka Chunka Chunka, and I started singing. And about two verses in, and he said, okay, that'll do. What's it called? I said, Heartbreak Hotel. He said, who sang it? I said, Elvis Presley. He said, who? I said, Elvis Presley. He said, oh, okay. So anyway, when he introduced me, he said, ladies and gentlemen, here's a young 15-year-old going to sing for you a song that you would likely never heard by a guy with a funny name. And that's how they introduced me. But I did get my first singing jobs. So 56 is really the start of my professional career. I worked in a lot of little places, parties and little pubs, especially around Glebe and Forest, around the inner city. And there was just me, my guitar, no microphone, and that's it.
That's where it begins.
Yeah.
That's where it begins.
Yeah.
And you've left school, you find jobs everywhere. I mean, you must have had a very cheery disposition about you that any employer seemed to want to employ you straight away, but you end up in 2GB, and that places you, again, your ability to be in the right place, right time, with the right passion. You're in January the 11th, 1957, in the 2GB Theatre. And if you don't know, that is a really historic date in Australian rock and roll. What happens?
Well, I worked in 2GB, as you said, and because I wanted to be a radio announcer in the country. And we've got a country announcer, used to be in the country area, Gary, was all around the different country areas over the years. And so that's what I wanted to be. And so I had to go for training. And whilst you were training, you had to learn all about scheduling and the ads and all that sort of stuff for the Macquarie network. So anyway, I was there, and then this one particular time they said, you're all invited down, the staff are invited down into the theatre, which was downstairs in Phillip Street. And this little theatre, I guess it held maybe 200 people, maybe not even that. And because the Jack Davies show is going to be on, and he has as his special guest Bill Haley and his Comets, and Freddie Bell and the Bellboys. So we were down there, and of course I'm down there with Glee. God, here's my hero, Bill Haley. And so that was the first time that I saw and heard real rock and roll from the actual creators. And that was recorded because it went out on the Jack Davies show. And I think it's the actual CD is out there somewhere too.
You can pick up little bits, and a little bits from YouTube as well, I think.
Oh, okay.
And it's that moment that,
amazing.
And if you hear Jack Davies' interviews with the artists, he doesn't quite know what he's dealing with. It's that moment when rock and roll actually arrives in Australia, and there's an audience going, what on earth is this?
Yeah.
And Keith's going, this
That's
is
right.
it. It's that absolute moment,
That's
the perfect moment.
And that was the same with Jack. I'm sorry, buddy, but that was the same with Jack. Jack had absolutely no idea of rock and roll. He was absolutely extremely successful in radio and doing his stuff, but he had no idea of what rock and roll was about. And the only reason why that all happened is because Lee Gordon, who was a real smart dude when it came to promotion, he called up 2GB, who was buying ads from, and he said, if I give you these guys for a show, will you give us X amount of ads, a pro rata thing, which became very common. And so they said that, and that's the only reason why rock and roll ended up in 2GB. No one knew anything about it. So it was between Lee Gordon and the bosses at 2GB.
So that's the absolute moment. Yet a month later, you're on stage at the Trocadero Ballroom in Sydney when they're looking to find Australia's Elvis Presley, so hopefully kids would know that there's an Elvis movie out called Love Me Tender, and they might want to go and see it. So what's the best way to promote it, because no one knows who Elvis is?
Yeah.
let's find Australia's Elvis. Now that's a big, big night for you.
Well,
It almost wasn't, but it becomes
that's true,
a
very true.
seminal night in your life. What
Yeah.
happens?
Well, that just sort of jumped on me, and it just shows what destiny, what part it took in my life. A couple of my friends at 2GB, they told me about, because occasionally I take my guitar in there and sing to them, as shy as I was. And they say, you know, there's this contest down the road. I think it was a Monday night, and we want you to go in. I said, no, I don't want to go. There's too many people. And anyway, I said, no, come on. No. And anyway, they dragged me down there, and stopped at a little pub on the way at the back there somewhere, and gave me a shandy, and because I didn't drink, and they pepped me up a little bit. Anyway, we turned up there, and the guy said, no, sorry, you're too late. We've got everyone we need. So I was thinking, oh, thank God for that. And I was just about to leave. And he said, no, hang on, listen, just in case something goes wrong, just hang around. So I hung around for a little while, and then toward the end of the night, he said, yes, okay, come on, we want you there. And they threw me just boom, out on the stage. And the idea was you did 3 songs, 3 Elvis songs. So I did the 3 songs. The people went absolutely ape, and they were everywhere. They were hanging around the stage, and there was 2,000 of them. The first time they'd ever seen rock and roll, especially local rock and rolls. And anyway, so that started the thing, and so I knew 8 Elvis songs. And so I ended up singing the whole 8 of the songs, and then that was it. But then I got more and more jobs after that, and not long after that I started my little Rockabilly band.
Everything changes.
Everything changed.
And so suddenly, you're in demand, you get to play, you've got a band, 45s are taking off. There's something there's 45 kids have got portable record players, top 40s, radio stations are saying this is a new market, let's get into this.
Yeah.
Everything's falling into place. You know, 1957 is an incredible year. And then you go for a ride in your now you're able to get a 1938 Dodge.
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, my first car was a 1928 Essex, and it was one of the ones that you had to wind up at the front, you know. Of course, you nearly break your shoulder every time you get this damn thing started. Anyway, in the end, I was tired of that. I was still only 16, and so I went up and I bought this 38 Dodge. And with my little Rockabilly band, we were working every night of the week. I was still working in the bank, but every night of the week I was performing in a pub at God, where was it? God, I forget where it is. Anyway, down here, just out of Sydney somewhere. And so every night of the week I was there. And but I'm getting tired and tired and tired. So working big, long hours of being so young. Anyway, one day I was heading to the bank in my car, and I just passed the bus stop where some kids who worked in the bank, they waved and I waved at them. We get up to the crest of the hill, and as I'm going down the hill, I put my foot on the brake to get it slower a little bit, and it didn't happen, it just went straight to the floor. So I'm screaming down the bloody hill, and I'm going onto the other side of the road, and I'm heading towards this pole. Thank God no cars were coming this way. But somehow something told me to jump out of the seat and jump into the back seat, which I did, where my guitar was. And the next seconds later, where I crashed into the pole, the motor came straight through into the back of the front seat. I would have been totally squashed. And anyway, so I was there, and the pole, of course, fell down. And so that, in the end, really sparked the end of my career at that stage.
And you find yourself back in Rowena. Your father says,
back home.
Destiny's coming.
Yeah, I told you rock and roll was no good.
Yes, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be a farmer. And so 1958, you're on Rowena. You still managed to find places to sing.
Yes, well, because I still had my guitar with me, and people, as soon as the kids who never knew anything about rock and roll, because radio, even country radio, hardly played it at all. So I became a little bit of a celebrity sort of thing, just singing with my guitar around the place. And there was one particular band that was very, very famous, playing at all the dances and balls around there. Frank Burke and his White Rose Orchestra. They were extremely popular in the country. And he heard about me, and he said, we want you to come along and sing. So I got up there one day in the Rowena Hall. I sang with him, and the band, oh Christ, they were terrible. The drummer had a big Salvation Army drum, and on the top there were skulls, and he go boom, 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 and then kick this to the drum like this, and there was a violin player that was out of tune. Frank played an out of tune piano, and there was another guy who played the saxophone. It was just really horrific. So I don't know how I got through, but the young liked it, and liked when I sang Blue Suede Shoes and whatever. And then he called me later and he said, I'd like you to come down to Narrabri and sing down there with us. So I thought, oh God, this is going to be terrible. I can't do this again. It was horrible. So anyway, I thought, okay, well, I'll go down. But I told him I prefer to go without the band. So it was just me and the guitar and the kids. The kids loved it. And so he offered me, he said, I'd like to give you a year's worth of work singing with me all around the place. They were singing, they were working like 3 or 4 days a week in all the balls around the country. And I thought, oh no, great singing and all that, but I couldn't do it with that band, and my father would kill me. So anyway, I said no.
So the tensions are rising between you and your father at this stage, and your mother says, come back to Sydney.
Yeah.
You arrive back at the end of 58, into 59, and it's a new Sydney.
Yeah.
What's changed? Where do you fit in? Now you've had Frank Rose Orchestra, you know, you've got that experience. But what's Sydney in 1959? What's happened?
Well, it was very different because 58, the year that I was gone, was the year that things started to, rock and roll was just starting to get a grip on. That was the year that Keith got himself in recording, and a few other things started happening. Allendale started a couple of little dances around the place in the eastern suburbs, and Jock did as well, Tony O'Keefe. And then Colejoy, they were starting to rise up a little bit, and so it was really, really different. But I came back, and the guys in my Rockabilly band, they had all gone, you know, left, right and centre, and so I was there. I didn't know anyone. I was really shy. I didn't have any friends. I could call up and say, oh, I'm back again. So there was really nothing. So the first thing I had to do was to get a job. So I got a job in a plumbing shop, and then at night time I still played my guitar and all that. And I remember going to Parlings at the store in Bankstown, and there were some blind kids there, and they were liking music, country music, and they were liking guitars, and so I invited them around to my house. So every weekend they'd come around, about four blind people. They'd come around and we'd sing, and mainly country music, you know, Hank Williams and all that early country stuff. And then I was just starting to get into rockabilly then. So, but it was really new. It was really hard for me.
And suddenly, we're reaching the time where everything changes. You're back. You throw yourself straight into this. You end up on 6 o'clock rock TV. Rock and roll's going on TV. You do one episode as Laurie Riggs, and from the rest of time, you're the man we see today, Lonnie Lee.
Yeah.
And that must be the most amazing time, because now we're getting music. You get a phone call from Alan Heffernan, who works for Lee Gordon.
Yeah.
1959, and I'm presuming everybody here has seen the footage when Lee Gordon puts you on the Fabian show, and he runs down. And if any of you are still there, we're there, that we're here now. I was really impressed with the way they screamed, and desperately wanted to touch you, but you just had your guitar and you were getting on that stage and you just rock and roll. You were Australia's Elvis in those moments.
I don't know about that, but it was fun. It was just absolutely a wonderful time, and that was really when things really started for me, because just after that show, the Fabian, the Stadium show, was when Alan asked me if I'd like to record. So I ended up recording a little EP, you know.
And do you want to tell? Look, they might not have this EP. Do you want to give a little?
Okay. It was okay. But the EP was called This Is Lonnie Lee. That's sort of like introducing me, you know. So let me see. Let me get here. Where are we? I did a version. I had a blind pianist at the time, Claude Papish. He was in Johnny Devlin's band from New Zealand, and he was in my band at the time. And he'd written a couple of songs that I liked, so I recorded those songs. One was called Rosaline, another one was called My First Day. It was the first pop record in Australia to have violins on it. And then the other songs I did, one was Love a Doll, that all the kids at my dances used to absolutely love a Doll. So I put that on. The other one was That's All Right Mama, that I loved at the time, because that was the time that one of the songs that introduced me to the early Elvis. But I did That's All Right, very, very, very different. Really, really different. In fact, you see it now. Well, that's all right, Mama. That's all right for you. That's all right, Mama. Just any way you do, that's all right. That's all right. That's all right, Mama. Any way you do. Well, Mama, she done told me. Papa done told me too. Something got you through. If she ain't no good for you, that's all right. That's all right. But that's all right, Mama. Anyway,
Here you are at the birth of rock and roll.
see, no one can say I copied Elvis.
Yeah. And then we get 8 or so.
Yeah, that came along quite late because the EP was so successful, being it sold, but it never got played on radio because radio didn't play albums, they only played singles. And so Lee asked me, he got me down one day into his office, and he asked me whether I'd like to do a single, and of course I said, oh yes, far out, thank you. So he said, well, get a song. So I got a song that I liked. A guy called Bobby Freeman just had a hit called Do You Want to Dance? You know, do you want to dance? Great song. And so I thought I'd see what songs he'd written. And I came across a song called Shame on You, Miss Johnson. And I thought, okay, that's good, I'll do that. And I did it at the dances, and the dancers really loved it. So I thought, okay, I'll do that one. So I turned up to the rehearsal with Shame on You, Miss Johnson. We rehearsed it, and it sounded really great. And then Johnny O'Keefe walked in the door. Now, the reason why he was there is because that same week, Lee Gordon and Alan Hefner had decided that they couldn't spend any more time looking after the artists on Lee Gordon. They needed someone to do that. And Jock was pushing all the time to become involved, and so this was his opportunity. So they made him A&R director of Leon. So his job was to make sure that all our recordings were good and blah, 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 all the rest of it. So anyway, he turned up and he said, how's it going, Lonnie? I said, oh, great. You know, he said, can I have a listen? So I played it to him. He said, oh, wow. He said, that's really, really different. I'm sure that'll do very, very well. What's the next one? And this stumped me because I was so naive and so stupid that I only got one song. Lee Gordon said, get a song. And I just turned up with one song, forgetting that you have to have two bloody songs for a record, A and B, you know. So anyway, Jock said, well, what are you going to do? Have you got anything you've written or anything you like at the moment to throw on as a B-side? I said, oh, no, I couldn't, my head was fried. I said, no, but maybe we can write something. So I said, yeah, okay, good idea. So we sat down at the piano, and with him on one end of the piano, me on the other, and go chugga, 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 there really roughly, and we come out with this song, and we recorded it. Now, when it was released, we went down to 2SM, because that was the main station there, not to you either, a lot of historians think it was, but it was 2SM at the time. And so we played it to the library there, and they said, oh yeah, that Shame on You, Miss Johnson's really, really good. And as he took the record off the turntable, he turned it over, and this never happened before to me, where he had Australian composition written on the label. He said, oh, there's an Australian song on this, because it was very, very rare that Australian songs were there. So I said, yes, it's a song that Jock and I wrote. So anyway, he said, okay, can I play it? So we played it. He said, oh, Christ, this is much better than the other one. This is the one I'm going to play. So that was 8 or so, and that took it off. And the same, it's funny, because the same thing happened in a way with Stan Rofe in Melbourne, who was the major guy in Melbourne. So it really took off. It was my first really big one.
You want to give us a little bit of?
Oh, okay.
So?
Okay, let me, I got a little bit here, hang on.
Well, as luck would have it.
Here we go. Everybody keeps on saying, what's the matter with me? What's the matter with me? Everybody keeps on saying, what's the matter with me? What's the matter with me? Ain't it so? Oh, ain't it so? I'm in love with you. Everybody keeps on saying, you don't treat me right. You don't treat me right. Everybody keeps on saying, you don't treat me right. Don't treat me right. Ain't it so? Oh, ain't it so? I'm in love with you.
Yes, he really is 85 tomorrow. Think of that. Now, the second book takes us through a cavalcade of experiences of life. And, I'm not going to go into it too long because I think everybody will want to read it for themselves and just throw themselves into this book. We've got everything from, you're first, you're a golden microphone. You have the first double-sided hit single, hit number one. You're the first full colour album.
Yeah.
Your career is full of firsts. You're constantly making things, and then the Beatles change a lot.
Oh, yeah, wow.
And the music industry changes again.
Yeah.
You were in that first wave, but you are beyond all a survivor who has found their place decade after decade after decade, setting trends, reorganising yourself, making the music industry something valuable to be shared. And you look at the range of ages in here tonight, that is a credit to what you've been able to achieve across so many years of giving your talent and your music to Australia. And when we get to the second, the third and fourth books, we'll find also the world. But I think, if there's something you would like to sing now to tie it all up.
Well, I guess maybe I could just sing a little bit of this. Hang on. Those two songs that ended up being both number ones on either side. It was really strange because when a record is released, usually stations play the same song. They're told this is side A. They don't even bother listening to side B, which sometimes can be better. And so they followed the same trend. Whereas this somehow was different because Sydney started playing I Found a New Love, and Melbourne and Hobart started playing Defenceless, which is on the other side. And so what happened is down there, that one, Defenceless, went up the charts. Here, I Found a New Love went up the charts. And then when they both realised that the other song is being played on the other places, they started playing them as well. So both songs were on the charts, on the other charts. That's how it became the thing. But I've got a little bit of those songs here. So if I can find it, let me see. Here we go. This is a bit of Defenceless. This was my favourite song that I recorded way back then. I really love this song. It was written by the guy who wrote so many songs for Elvis. They're all back in the day, All Shook Up, Don't Be Cruel, and all those wonderful songs. And he wrote this one here. Let that battle begin. was this one here. Where are you? I found a new love. She is the true love. I found a new love to last me all of my life. I had an old love. She was a cold love, but I found a new love to last me all of my life. No more blues, no more fears, no more loneliness, no more tears. I found a new love. She is a true love, but I found a new love to last me all of my life.
This is the man who's charted his own path, and a really significant path through Australian culture and Australian life. And I think we should feel very privileged to have had this opportunity tonight. Thanks, Lonnie, for taking us on a journey that is just not just your journey, but it's been shared by all of us. We've all come into your path at different times, in different ways, and have been moved by what you've contributed to us. But I think it's important to recognise just how significant your career has been for Australia and Australian culture. It's a profound career, and these books are marvellous. We've got to finish now, but if you want to keep talking to Lonnie, you can get the book signed, but trust me, when you're reading it, you keep this image in your mind, because that's what it's like. You feel like you're going to be talking to Lonnie. So if you've got a photo, or get a photo tonight, just put that up there while you're reading, and you just feel like he's talking to you. Honestly, it's a great, great read. So thank you, Lonnie, for everything you've done for us.
Thank you, Brian. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you all for coming along. It's absolutely wonderful that you did. I know you could have been 1,000 places than here, so it's just wonderful that you did. And if you do read the book, I do sincerely hope that you enjoy it, part of my life. I don't think that I'm anything special. I don't think that I've really done a lot of the stuff. Well, I've done these things, but I don't feel that they are really that important, because in my life I was just dragged along, and these things just all happen around me, as indeed things still today are happening around me. The next book that I'm doing is, after this book, this second book, this one here is that finishes in 71, and the next book goes from 71 till about 83, and that's all my years in the United States. And so that's really a very, very different book. It's my American sort of era. And then the fourth book is when I came back here to Australia from 84 right through till COVID. So they're all different lives. I have a few different lives there, really.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming along. Thank you.
Can I ask everyone to join me in thanking Lonnie and Bernie again for such a great conversation tonight? You can join more great conversations at Sydney's finest literary event program by checking out our upcoming events at gleebooks.com.au. Lonnie will head to the signing desk by the stage to sign the books, which you can purchase up the back. Please feel free to keep enjoying a drink, but we'll be escorting everybody out by 7:55. And please do remember that the lift only takes 4 passengers. Thank you, and we'll see you again soon.
Yes, that's beautiful. Thank you. Beautiful, Bernie. Thank you so much. That's really.
I know it's got a lot more of the second one.
Oh, I know. Yes, but running against time.
Yeah.